Take the grand tour, grand tour. Take the grand tour, grand tour. GT.
It goes without saying that Dragon Ball GT is somewhat controversial among the Dragon Ball fanbase. Like most things in life, it has its good and bad aspects. But overall, my feelings towards the series is that it had some interesting ideas, but the execution was pretty bad. And pretty bad is exactly how I describe Xenoverse's Dragon Ball GT DLC. Not only does it add very little to the experience, but it is also a great example of how not to do downloadable content. Dragon Ball GT just can't catch a break. The GT DLC was split into 2 separate packs, giving the impression that they must have had to split it up because of the sheer amount of content on offer. However, this is not the case at all, and it baffles my mind that they actually had the gall to split this up into 2 separate DLCs. It would be like somebody getting a bowl of cereal, but rather than them pouring the milk into the bowl with the cereal, they instead bring you a bowl with just the cereal and another bowl with just the milk. And you're just like,
but why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
This is a clear case of greed on the publisher's part. The first half of the DLC was released not even a month after the initial game came out, and it cost almost $10 USD, or almost $16 in New Zealand. Even now, it still costs that much on the PSN store. What a bloody ripoff, honestly. What the fuck? I would have been pissed if I had paid full price for this. And this is only for pack 1. You'd have to fork out even more if you want the full experience. And even then, it is still incomplete. And that's because Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta was relegated to a pre-order bonus for Xenoverse 1. So even if you buy the Dragon Ball GT DLC, you still cannot play Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta. And I only learned that you could play as him from Carlisle in my comment section, because I just assumed that he wasn't playable at all. That is the risk when releasing things as a pre-order or DLC. When the game ages, the content may just become unobtainable. To begin the DLC, you'll need to head to the Time Nest and talk to the robot Kalina, not Spots. It is very important that you do not talk to Spots first, because if you do, the game will proceed to take you through part 2 of the DLC without warning. I'll let you guess as to how I know this. Because of the wormhole that Demagogue has opened up, another distortion in history has appeared. This one is in the same timeline as Dragon Ball GT takes place in. However, you will not be playing from the beginning of the series, as the game skips over the Black Star Dragon Ball Saga and starts pretty much at the end of the Baby Saga. So this DLC is even more reliant on the player already knowing the story ahead of time, because there is little to no setup at all and the game just throws you in the middle of it. I mean, I accidentally played this DLC out of order and I could barely tell the difference. Honestly, I didn't notice that I was playing part 2 until I got to the final stage, and I was like, that's how little setup there is for this DLC. Also, the premise for the base game is kind of abandoned, where the game would show the results of the distorted timeline and then you would fight to restore it to normal. But in this DLC, this isn't the case. You just start fighting. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't affect the game that much, but it does make it a bit more confusing as to why you're doing what you're doing. Aside from the fact that the wormhole was created by the main villain, so it by default must be the main character's job to fix it. It's just one of those things with a little bit more context would go a long way. In this timeline, Goku has been turned back into a child and was travelling through space with Trunks and his granddaughter Pan. Now, this DLC does go out of its way to explain that this Trunks and this Trunks are not the same Trunks.
Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. Intel has told us there are at least 7.
Okay, I already see one. Give him. Okay.
For those who have watched my retrospective of Xenoverse 1 will already know why this doesn't really make that much sense within the time travel rules that this game establishes. And no, this DLC does not clarify anything when it comes to making the time travel logic consistent. This is just another hand wavy away scenario, and honestly it really does not matter at this point. GT Trunks is a separate character, and that is fine with me because he is by far the boringest iteration of Trunks in the series. You have future Trunks who's really cool and badass, and then there is the kid Trunks who's kind of like cheeky and stuff like that, and then GT Trunks is just boring, no character Trunks who's just like bland as hell. How does Bulma, like the smartest person in the world, and Vegeta, the Saiyan from outer space, powerful warrior, raise GT Trunks? It just makes no sense. That's a bad character, because it's not a character. It's shit. I'm sorry, this is not a GT rant video, even though it kind of turned into that. Anyway, while exploring space for the Black Star Dragon Balls, the trio run into Baby, an artificial being created by the Tuffles that have it out for the Saiyans due to them eradicating their entire race. So, a bit petty, but who isn't guilty of that every now and then? On the planet Tuffle, Trunks has turned on Pan and has started to attack her. Using the time scroll, we teleport into the fight and must protect Pan from Trunks. Even though the synopsis for this portion says that the Tuffles created Baby, this isn't technically true, as Baby is actually a Tuffle that had manipulated a scientist called Dr. Mew to rebuild him as a machine mutant type thing. I guess he's kind of like Mirror in that way. What is Mirror again? An android demon or something. Baby has the ability to take over others' bodies, and this is what is happening to Trunks. Although the game doesn't do a really good job of explaining this, and just says that Trunks has been hypnotized, which I guess is kind of the same thing, but then it's like, is he being controlled by Demogorgon's influence because he's purple, or is he hypnotized by Baby, or is it both? It's really not clear, and I don't think the game cares, and neither do I. During this fight, you need to make sure that Pan's health isn't fully depleted, as it will cause you to lose the fight. It is probably the hardest thing about this fight. She's fucking annoying. Once Trunks has been dealt with, Baby appears in his Golden 8 form, so all the events like Baby taking over Gohan, Goten and Vegeta etc. are completely skipped over, which seems like a strange choice, as they would probably be far more interesting fights than this one, as the Great 8 battles are extremely underwhelming. In his Golden 8 form, he just struggles to be a threat at all, and most of the time you'll just have to wait around until the game decides that you're allowed to grab his tail and pound him into the ground. Partway through the fight, Super Saiyan 4 Goku will show up to help, but it's not like you'll need it, as like I was just saying, Golden 8 Baby is so lumbering and slow that he can barely even hit you. Post-battle, Baby is lying unconscious on the ground. Suddenly the wormhole spawns above him, and Goku and our time patroller watch as Baby is slowly dragged into it, teleporting him to who knows where. Except I do know, because I played this out of order, and not on purpose. Before we return to the time nest, Goku thanks us for helping Pan, but the way he delivers the line makes it sound like he is calling us Pan.
Thanks for helping, Pan.
There must have been a rogue comma in the script or something. Back at the time nest, Trunks checks another time scroll to locate the next distortion. Yeah, the story doesn't really flow that well, as this next fight skips forward a year to partway through the Super 17 arc. In the new history, the Underworld and Earth have been connected, with villains from the past wreaking havoc on Earth. We must fight off the hordes of the dead, and it sucks. Xenoverse's gameplay just does not work well when facing off against multiple enemies on your own. The AI has a tendency to barrage you with attacks, making it difficult to do anything. Definitely one of the most frustrating aspects of the game, and guess what this DLC has a lot of? Okay, so it's not all that bad, as characters will eventually join you to help you out, but at points I was getting really annoyed with these battles. To win this fight, you must take out 20 grunts, and then the Neo Ginyu Force will show up. Because the real Captain Ginyu is currently trapped inside a Namekian frog, the Ginyu Force has recruited Nappa of all people to be their new leader. Nappa has emerged from the underworld, seeking revenge on Vegeta for killing him all those years ago. When GT Trunks joins the fight, Nappa becomes even more determined, as he learns that Trunks is Vegeta's son. Even though we are outnumbered, we manage to take out all of the members of the Neo Ginyu Force, and honestly this fight is way easier than the previous one, because it is less rage-inducing. While standing over the defeated Ginyu Force members, Trunks is suddenly hit with a powerful blast and sent soaring through the air. It is Android 17, but the evil version from the underworld. He is looking for the other version of himself, so they can fuse together. It's not really clear in the story whether or not this 17 is under the influence of Demigra or if he has just been his normal evil self, because in the source material 17 was this way anyway and was able to fuse with his other self, but if we were able to defeat him before he was able to fuse, wouldn't that change history? And isn't the point of the time patrol to prevent changes in history, not to create them? So why are we even fighting this version of that? Fuck it. It doesn't matter anyway because Evil 17 manages to get away and find his other self. Fusing together, they transform into Super 17. This is one of the better fights featured in the DLC because you are only up against one powerful enemy, and that is what Xenoverse 1 is best at. Partway through, Goku will arrive and turn Super Saiyan 4 to help out. But the fight is really not all that difficult, especially if you spam ultimate attacks like me. Just like Baby before him, Super 17 gets sucked into the wormhole, and once again Goku thanks us for the help.
Make no mistake, I will pay you back.
Are you threatening me?
Back in the Time Nest, Trunks and the Supreme Kai of Time postulate that Demigra is gathering Baby and Super 17 to use them to create a big distortion in history. And that is the end of part 1. All up, it took me a little under 30 minutes to complete, and I really need to reiterate that I am so glad that I did not pay full price for this. The first half is basically just all set up for part 2, and the setup isn't even very good because the game barely even attempts to tell the story in any coherent way. My short synopsis of the story gives just as much detail as the game does. That is how bare bones it is. But there are a few more things that the DLC gives you outside of the story segment. Tien and Yamcha are now masters that you can learn some new skills from.
I do not know what this Yamcha is, but it sounds disappointing.
I couldn't care less about this. That's just me being honest. There are also some new outfits added. The most prominent ones featured are the Launch and Devilman set, which it is cool that they added some more Dragon Ball stuff, but considering this is a GT DLC, you'd think that they'll be GT themed and not Dragon Ball themed. The Launch outfit is actually really cool because when your character turns Super Saiyan, the hair also changes like it does when she sneezes. Okay, while editing this, I went to look for a clip of Launch sneezing from the anime, and I stumbled across this YouTube channel that is literally just them archiving characters sneezing in anime, and I was just looking at it like, I know what you're doing, and you need to stop. GT Goku, Trunks and Pan are also added to the character roster, plus more skills and stuff like that. I think I already said that. I said it again. But the other major inclusion are 3 parallel quests, which are fine. I mean, they are parallel quests. They work the same as all the others. You have a 15-minute time limit to complete each quest along with some hidden objectives in order to get an ultimate finish. You still will need to grind these quests like you have to grind every other quest to get all the gear from them. And that is basically it for Pack 1. If all you care about was the story, then Pack 1 would have been a huge disappointment. It just feels so incomplete because it is. It's kind of insulting that they delivered something so half-assed and then expect people to pay more to see the conclusion. What idiot would do that? Pack 2 came out about a month after the first one. Was it worth the extra wait? No. Throughout the series, the Dragon Balls have been overused, causing an imbalance in their power. This leads to the emergence of 7 powerful dragons known as the Shadow Dragons. Each dragon embodies a negative aspect or consequences of the wishes made with the Dragon Balls. I actually really like the concept of this saga, but unfortunately the anime doesn't execute it very well, and the same can be said for this DLC. The DLC takes place partway through the Shadow Dragon saga. Goku has already defeated 4 Shadow Dragons, and Nova Shenron has appeared to challenge him. In the midst of their fierce battle, Ice Shenron kidnaps Pan and steals the Dragon Ball she held. Teaming up with Goku, we must defeat the 2 dragons. Unlike in the anime, Nova Shenron never switches sides to help us out, so the fight is a pretty standard affair. Nova and Ice are 2 of the 4 characters that you get with the DLC, Toa and Mira being the other 2. Just like with Pack 1, there are a few other things that come with it, like a few outfits, skills and some parallel quests. Nothing really too notable. Well, I guess the parallel quests provide a good challenge, especially when trying to get an ultimate finish. Right after defeating Ice Shenron, the final Shadow Dragon, Omega Shenron, will appear, And just to rub salt in the wound, Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta shows up. Even with both Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Vegeta joining in on the action, we still don't stand a chance against Omega Shenron. At least that's what the game script says, as my character is kinda over-leveled at this point. With no other options, Goku and Vegeta fuse together to make the powerful, formidable, the extra hairy Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. With their combined strength, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta easily overpowers Omega Shenron and delivers the final blow, and it really jarringly cuts to him defeated on the ground. I did not edit this. The wormhole appears once again, but this time everyone gets sucked into it, and this leads into the final fight of the DLC. Yes, part 2 is even shorter than part 1. On paper, this final fight sounds amazing. You and Gogeta up against the most powerful villains in Dragon Ball GT, but in reality, when you go to play it, you just end up getting ganked by 17 and Omega, while Gogeta is passed out on the ground, and Giant Ape Baby is just fucking around in the background because he can't do shit. Just like the anime it is based on, the GT DLC has interesting ideas, but the execution of those ideas are pretty bad. Even the sound has given up at this point. Truly epic. After the fight, we get one of the better cutscenes in the game, where we have a cute interaction between Vegeta and his son. And that's it for the story of this DLC. That's the whole thing. Pack 2 took me 25 minutes and 53 seconds, and that includes watching the cutscenes. The status quo is returned, and they go and eat some of the Supreme Kai of Time's shitty cooking. Yay. There's a popular saying that goes, I am here for a good time, not a long time. Regrettably, this sentiment does not apply to the GT packs, offering neither a good time nor a lasting one. The lack of substance and creativity in the DLC only serves to further tarnish the reputation of Dragon Ball GT. It's a shame that even in the realm of video games, GT continues to disappoint.